Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. In this video, I'm about to reveal the subtle art of speaking so people respect you without ever having to raise your voice. Stick around because these game-changing tips could transform the way you communicate for good. Trust me, you won't want to miss this. It's not about being the loudest, smartest, or most experienced. It's about how you speak. In this video, I'm spilling the tea on ways to speak so people can't help but respect you. Some of these will make you nod, others might make you squirm, but I promise they'll all change the way people see you, ready to level up your voice. Let's go one ditch the I'm sorry habit. Okay, let's talk about the two words that are ruining your life. I'm sorry, yeah, I said that. Stop apologizing for every little thing. It's not cute, it's not polite, and it's definitely not helping anyone. Respect you, controversial, sure, but let's break this down. When you apologize unnecessarily, you're not being polite, you're undermining yourself. It's like you're telling the world, hey, don't take me seriously, I'm already assuming I'm wrong. You're practically handing people permission to walk all over. You picture this. You walk into a room and say, sorry, I'm late, even though you're only 2 minutes behind because traffic was a nightmare. Now you framed yourself as the problem when honestly, life just happened. Or how about this classic? Someone bumps into you and you blurt out, oh, sorry. What are you sorry for? Being physically present? Let me tell you about the time I realized I had a full-blown sorry addiction. I was in a meeting and someone interrupted me. And guess what I said? Oh, sorry, go ahead, excuse me. Why was I apologizing for being interrupted? That was my turning point. So I started catching myself every time I was about to say, I'm sorry, I stopped and asked myself, do I actually owe anyone an apology, or am I just trying to soften the moment? Spoiler alert, 90% of the time, there was no reason to apologize. Apologizing when it's unnecessary isn't just a habit, it's a mindset. It's like you're apologizing for existing, for taking up space, for being human. And if you keep doing it, guess what? People will start to believe you. They'll see you as someone who's always in the wrong, someone who doesn't value themselves enough to stand tall. But here's the reality. You have every right to take up space, to express your opinions, and to make mistakes. Respect doesn't come from apologizing constantly. It comes from owning your presence and embracing your imperfections. So what can you say instead of apologizing? Let's rewrite the script. Instead of saying, sorry I'm late, try thank you for waiting. Instead of sorry for bothering, say, do you have a moment? Instead of sorry, can I add something? Go with I'd like to add something. Boom, now you're confident and respectful without apologizing for simply existing. The next time you're about to say I'm sorry, pause and ask yourself, do I truly need to apologize or am I just trying to make myself smaller? Respect starts with how you respect yourself. Ditch the unnecessary apologies and you'll be amazed at how people start to see and hear you differently. Now, let's talk about setting boundaries and sticking to them. Let's get straight to the point. If you're not setting boundaries, you're not being selfless, you're being spineless. Yeah, I said it. Before you get upset, think about it. How many times have you agreed to something you didn't want to do just to avoid conflict? How often have you allowed someone to overstep because you didn't want to appear difficult? Here's why: boundaries aren't just nice to have, they're essential for respect. Boundaries aren't about keeping people away. They're about teaching others how to engage with you respectfully. Think of them as the rules of your personal game. No boundaries, no rules. And without rules, people will engage with you however they want. Spoiler alert, that rarely ends well for you. Let me make it simple. When you don't set boundaries, you're essentially saying, your comfort is more important than my peace of mind. Does that sound familiar? That's why you end up answering texts at 2 a.m. or working late because someone else failed to finish their task. Here's where it gets controversial. When you begin setting boundaries, people will get upset. Why? Because they're used to you bending over backward for them. Trust me, I've been there. One time I told a close friend I couldn't help them move because I had other plans. Their response? A guilt trip. Wow, I thought I was someone they could rely on, and for a moment I almost gave in, but then I realized it wasn't about me being a bad friend. it was about them not respecting my time, so I held firm to my boundary. And you know what? They found someone else to help, and we're still friends. And then I opened up the video camera and I showed my son again, the gloomy look in his eyes. People will adjust, but only if you hold the line. I'll never forget the day I realized my lack of boundaries was costing me my peace. I had this coworker who constantly dropped last-minute tasks on me. At first I would say, sure, no problem, because I wanted to be helpful. But soon I noticed a pattern. Every time I bailed them out, they'd do it again. One night, as I was staying late to fix their mistakes, I had an epiphany. Why am I prioritizing their disorganization over my own life? So the next time they tried it, I said, I can't help with that right now. You'll need to figure it out. Did they sulk? Yes. Did they manage on their own? Absolutely. And for once, I went home on time. Here's the truth. Boundaries aren't about being mean. They're about showing both yourself and others that your time, energy, and well-being matter. If you don't value your own limits, no one else will. But here's the other side. Boundaries aren't just for the people who respect you. They're also for those who don't. Setting boundaries helps you filter out people who aren't willing to treat you with dignity. And that's not selfish, that's self-preservation. Here's a tip. Don't over-explain. A simple no is enough. No excuses, no apologies. And here's the key, stick to it. Because if you cave, you're teaching people that your boundaries are negotiable. Also, practice saying no to smaller things. It's like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. Start with something low stakes, like turning down an invitation you're not excited about. Once you realize the world doesn't end when you say no, it gets easier. Look, setting boundaries isn't easy. It's uncomfortable, and it's going to ruffle some feathers. But the alternative, living a life where everyone else's needs come before your own, is a fast track to burnout and resentment. So start small. Define what you need, communicate it clearly, and most importantly, stick to it. Because the only people who get upset about your boundaries are the ones who benefit from you having none. And honestly, good riddance. Set the boundary, trust me, it's worth it. 3, master the art of pausing. You felt that, didn't you? That brief moment of tension when I paused. That's the power of silence. My friend, it makes people pay attention. But here's the thing. Most people are so uncomfortable with silence that they'll do anything to fill it. They overtalk, rush their points, and end up sounding like they're trying to sell something rather than just sharing their thoughts. But here's the surprising truth. The pause isn't empty. It's where your power lies. We live in a world that values speed. Fast talkers are often seen as confident, quick thinkers. But here's the catch. Fast doesn't always equal effective. When you speak too quickly without pauses, your words can become background noise, something people hear but don't really listen to. A pause, however, forces people to tune in. It creates anticipation. It's like music. Imagine a song that's just a constant stream of beats without any breaks. It would be overwhelming, right? A pause in music creates rhythm. And a pause in speech does the same. It's not about saying less, it's about making every word count. I wasn't always a fan of pausing. In fact, I was terrible at it. Back in the day, I thought I needed to prove myself with an endless stream of words, whether in meetings, conversations, or even on dates. I was always filling the air, thinking silence would make me seem unsure. Honestly, it didn't make me look smart or confident, it made me exhausting. There was this one time I was pitching an idea at work. I was so caught up in explaining every detail that I didn't realize people had checked out halfway through. Later, my manager pulled me aside and said, "You've got great ideas, but you don't give people time to process them." Ouch, right? That was my wake-up call. I realized I was doing all the work for my audience instead of trusting them to catch on. When I started practicing pauses, it felt strange at first, really strange. I'd say something, stop to let it sink in, and immediately want to jump in and explain myself. But over time, something incredible happened. People started paying more attention. Instead of zoning out, they were leaning in. They weren't just hearing me, they were listening. Here's the moment that really solidified it for me. I was giving a presentation, and I deliberately slowed down, adding pauses after key points. Afterwards, someone came up to me and said, That was so impactful. I felt like every word mattered. That's when I realized I was onto something. It wasn't just about what I said, it was about how I said it. Here's the deeper lesson. Pausing isn't just about speaking, it's about presence. It's about being so confident in your words that you don't feel the need to fill every moment with noise. A pause says, I trust my words to speak for themselves. That's a rare kind of confidence, and that's exactly why it commands respect. But it's not just about confidence. Pausing also teaches us patience. It forces us to slow down and let things sink in. And let's be honest, in a world that's always rushing, there's something powerful about someone who's willing to take their time. It shows they value their words and yours. Now let me address the critics, because I know you're out there. You're probably thinking, if I pause, people will think I'm lost or unsure. Let me flip that. For you, pausing doesn't make you look unsure. It makes you look deliberate. It signals to people that you're thinking, being intentional, and not afraid of a little silence. And if someone mistakes that for hesitation, that's their problem, not yours. The art of pausing isn't just about speech, it's about life. It's about knowing when to slow down, when to let things breathe, and when to let silence speak louder than words. So the next time you're tempted to fill the gaps with chatter, resist. Trust the pause. Lean into the discomfort. Because when you master the pause, you don't just earn respect, you own the room. And honestly, that's the kind of power you deserve. See what I did there for? Use humor without turning into a clown. Humor is like hot sauce. Used right, it elevates everything. Used wrong, ruins the whole dish. And let me tell you, nothing erodes respect faster than crossing the line from being funny to being a clown. I know that sounds harsh, but someone's got to say it. So let's break it down. How to use humor to earn respect instead of losing it. First, let's be clear. Humor is a fantastic tool. It breaks tension, builds connections, and can even make you seem smarter. Yeah, studies back that up. But here's the controversial part. If you're not careful, humor can backfire. Rely too much on jokes, especially self-deprecating ones, or constantly play the fool, and people will start seeing you as, well, a fool. And trust me, no one respects a punchline that doesn't know when to quit. Here's where it gets real. I used to be that guy, the one who always had a joke ready, even when the moment didn't call for it. I thought I was being charming, but in reality, I was undermining myself. I'll never forget this. One time, in a meeting, I cracked a joke about my workload, something like, oh, I'm just here to make spreadsheets look pretty. Everyone laughed, but afterward, my manager pulled me aside and said, you're too good at what you do to downplay yourself like that. That hit me hard. I realized that while humor was getting me attention, it wasn't always the kind of attention I wanted. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you need to turn into some ultra-serious robot. Humor is an incredible way to build rapport and lighten the mood. But here's the key. It has to serve a purpose. Are you using humor to connect with people, or are you using it to deflect, distract, or beg for approval? For example, self-deprecating humor can be great in moderation. It shows humility and relatability. But if you're constantly the butt of your own jokes, people might start to believe it. There's a fine line between laughing with people and giving them permission to laugh at you. Here's the deeper message. Humor is about timing, intent, and balance. When used thoughtfully, it's a sign of intelligence and confidence. But when it becomes a crutch, it's a sign of insecurity. And I know, because I've been there. There was a time in my life when I used humor to avoid difficult conversations. If someone gave me critical feedback, I'd crack a joke to deflect. If I felt uncomfortable in a serious discussion, I'd turn it into a laugh fest. And you know what happened? People stopped taking me seriously. I had to learn that respect doesn't come from being the funniest person in the room. It comes from knowing when to be serious and when to be lighthearted. The trick is finding that sweet spot. Humor should add to the conversation, not take away from it. It should make people feel connected, not distracted. And most importantly, it should reflect your confidence, not your insecurity. A well-timed joke can show that you're sharp and in control, but a constant barrage of jokes can make you look like you're trying too hard. And let's not forget, humor can be risky. Sarcasm, for example, can either make you look witty or make you look like a jerk. It all depends on how it lands. Dark humor, same deal. Know your audience, and for the love of all things, read the room. There's nothing more cringeworthy than a joke that bombs because it was tone deaf. At its core, humor is a form of communication, and like any other form of communication, it reflects who you are. Are you using it to build people up or tear them down? Are you masking your insecurities or showing your confidence? Because here's the truth. Respect isn't about how many people laugh at your jokes. It's about how your humor makes them feel. So the next time you're about to crack a joke, ask yourself, what's my intent? Am I using humor to connect, or am I hiding behind it? Because when you strike that balance, when you use humor with purpose and confidence, you're not just funny, you're unforgettable. And hey, if all else fails, just remember, dad jokes are always a crowd pleaser, unless they're terrible, in which case, maybe rethink your strategy. 5, drop the gossip. Let's get controversial. Gossip. You know that juicy little tidbit about Karen from accounting, or that thing your friend swore you wouldn't tell anyone? That's wrong. You didn't pay for the gossip suck. 2, do you mind if I ask what it is that makes you laugh? We've all done it, right? But here's the brutal truth. Gossip doesn't make you look interesting. It makes you look untrustworthy. And if you're the one spilling all the tea, guess what? No one's respecting you. They're just entertained until they realize they might be next on your list. Now, don't get me wrong, I get the appeal. Gossip feels like social currency. It feels good in the moment, like you're part of some exclusive club. But here's the flip side. Every time you indulge in gossip, you're telling the people around you, I can't be trusted. It's not just about the person you're talking about, it's about you. And if people can't trust you, they can't respect you, period. I learned this the hard way. Let me tell you about the time I got burned by my own love of gossip. There was this colleague of mine, let's call him Dave. Dave was always showing up late. And one day I made an offhand comment to someone else about how he probably had an alarm clock that hated him. It was a joke, but it spread like wildfire. Before I knew it, people were adding their own bits to the story. Dave was lazy. Dave didn't care about his job. The next thing I knew, Dave was the talk of the office, and I was the one who started it. What I didn't realize was that I had created a narrative about him based on one comment. That simple joke had grown into something bigger, something that wasn't just about him anymore. It was about me. I had just shown the team that I wasn't trustworthy enough to keep private matters to myself. And here's the thing, gossip doesn't just hurt the person being talked about, it hurts you too. When you gossip, you put yourself in the same category as the person you're talking about. You're no longer the trusted friend or the reliable colleague. You become someone who's more interested in the drama than in protecting people's privacy. And when people see that in you, they'll start to wonder what you say behind their backs. So here's the point. Drop the gossip if you want to earn respect. Not only will you be seen as more trustworthy, but you'll also be seen as someone who values the integrity of your relationships. 6, lead with empathy. Empathy is a game changer. It's the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. When you lead with empathy, people feel seen, heard, and valued. And guess what? That makes them respect you. But here's the twist. Empathy isn't about being soft. It's about understanding someone's point of view, even if you disagree with it. When you show empathy, you're not giving up your own values or opinions. You're simply acknowledging that someone else's perspective is valid. Take a moment to listen, ask questions, and really try to see things from their point of view. When you do this, you build bridges instead of walls. You build trust instead of tension. Now, let's face it, not everyone is easy to empathize with. Some people can be difficult, challenging, or just plain frustrating. But that's where empathy becomes a true test of character. It's easy to show empathy when things are going smoothly, but real respect comes when you can empathize with someone who's made your day harder. It's the difference between getting angry and getting curious. I've had my share of difficult conversations, and I've learned that when you respond with empathy, it shifts the whole dynamic. People stop feeling like they need to defend themselves, and they start to open. They start to feel heard. And that respect that follows, it's genuine. 7, speak with conviction. There's a difference between saying something and saying something with conviction. When you speak with conviction, people take you seriously. They know that you stand behind your words. It doesn't matter if you're making a business proposal, offering a suggestion in a meeting, or simply if you speak with conviction, people respect you because they can sense your confidence and your belief in what you're saying. But here's the trick. Conviction doesn't mean being dogmatic. It doesn't mean never admitting you're wrong. What it means is that when you express yourself, you do it with confidence and clarity. You don't apologize for your opinion or apologize for the space you occupy. You own it. One of the things I learned over time is that speaking with conviction isn't about being perfect. It's about being authentic. When you speak your truth, regardless of whether it's popular or not, people respect you for your honesty and your willingness to take a stand. Conviction also makes you more persuasive. People are more likely to follow someone who speaks with confidence than someone who is unsure or overly hesitant. 8, stay calm under pressure. Let's be real. Life throws curveballs. Whether it's a crisis at work, a tough personal situation, or an unexpected emergency, how you respond under pressure says a lot about your character. And here's the thing, staying calm under pressure is one of the most respected traits you can have. When everyone around you is freaking out and you remain calm, people notice. It doesn't mean you have to be emotionless or cold. It simply means you don't let the situation control you. You stay composed, take a step back, assess the situation, and make decisions with clarity and level-headedness. I remember one particularly stressful project at work. The deadline was looming, the team was stressed, and everything seemed to be falling apart. People were panicking, running around, and acting like the world was ending. Instead of joining the chaos, I took a deep breath, spoke calmly, and suggested that we break things down into manageable steps. People immediately looked to me for guidance, and the respect came flooding in. 9, be reliable. Reliability is one of the cornerstones of respect. When you say you're going to do something, do it. When you commit to a deadline, meet it. Being reliable shows that you value not just your time, but other people's time as well. It's a simple concept, but one that's often overlooked. Here's the reality. If you can't rely on someone, it's hard to respect them. But when people can count on you, they trust you, and trust is the foundation of respect. Over time, this reliability builds a reputation, and people will know that you are someone who follows through. And here's the thing. Once you've built that reputation, it becomes one of your most valuable assets. You actually have more access to things that you used to be. Like, you can hide behind a sentence like, "We are a good team." 10, own your mistakes. Nobody's perfect, mistakes happen, but what truly matters is how you handle them. When you own up to your mistakes, you show humility and responsibility. You also show that you're not afraid to admit when you're wrong. That takes courage, and it earns respect. I've made plenty of mistakes in my career, and I've learned the hard way that trying to hide them only makes things worse. The moment I learned to own my mistakes and take responsibility, people began to trust me more. They saw me as someone who could be honest, even when it wasn't easy. And that kind of respect, it's earned through transparency, accountability, and a willingness to grow. It was a wake-up call. I had been talking over my own success. I had made my point, but instead of letting it resonate, I tried to hammer it in with more words, thinking I could somehow make it better. The reality is, less is often more. When we talk too much, we start to dilute our message, and instead of creating impact, we risk losing our audience's attention. Here's the thing. When you know when to stop talking, you create space for others to process your words. Silence isn't awkward, it's powerful. It gives people the opportunity to think, to reflect, and to form their own opinions about what you said, and guess what? That's when your message truly lands. People don't need to hear everything. They need to hear what matters. So next time you feel that urge to keep talking, pause. Take a moment to breathe and let the words sit. Let them linger. And when you do speak, make every word count. You'll find that people will respect your ability to communicate more effectively. It's not about filling the air with noise. It's about knowing when silence speaks louder than words. 7, be consistent. Consistency builds trust, and trust is the foundation of respect. People need to know that when you say you're going to do something, you're going to follow through. If you're the type of person who constantly shifts their opinions or changes their behavior depending on the situation, people will start to see you as unreliable. I've been guilty of this before, changing my stance on things depending on who I was talking to or what was convenient at the time. But the more I did that, the less people took me seriously. Consistency, on the other hand, makes you predictable in the best way. People know where you stand and they can rely on you to be the same person in any situation. But consistency isn't just about sticking to your word, it's also about being true to your values. When you consistently show up in alignment with your principles, you earn the kind of respect that goes beyond surface level interactions. It's the kind of respect that doesn't waver, no matter what happens. 8, don't play the victim. This one's tough but necessary. Nobody respects a perpetual victim. Life throws challenges at all of us, but how you respond to them determines how people perceive you. If you're constantly complaining, blaming others, or looking for sympathy, people start to view you as someone who isn't taking responsibility for their own life. Let me be clear, it's okay to have tough days. It's okay to feel down sometimes. But if you make a habit of wallowing in negativity and waiting for others to fix things for you, you're robbing yourself of respect. People respect those who take ownership of their situations, who find solutions instead of staying stuck in problems. There was a time in my life when I was constantly blaming circumstances or other people for things not going my way. But once I took responsibility for my actions and focused on what I could control, things started to change. Not only did my confidence grow, but so did the respect others had for me. People started to see me as someone who was in charge of their own life, someone who didn't rely on others for validation or pity. 9, take care of your health. This might seem like a strange one, but trust me, when you take care of your body and mind, you send a message that you respect yourself. And when you respect yourself, others will follow suit. It's hard to command respect when you're not even taking care of your own well-being. You don't have to be a fitness fanatic or a health guru, but taking the time to eat well, exercise, and prioritize mental health shows that you're committed to being the best version of yourself. When you're well-rested, clear-headed, and strong, you show up as a more confident, capable person, and that commands respect. And 10, embrace vulnerability. Now, I know this one might seem counterintuitive. Vulnerability often gets a bad rap, but here's the truth. Being vulnerable doesn't make you weak. It makes you human, and people respect humans, not facades. When you open up and show your true self, your flaws, your struggles, your imperfections, you create a deeper connection with others. They see that you're not trying to be perfect. You're just being real. And that honesty and openness, it's one of the most respected traits you can have. There was a time when I thought I had to have it all together to be the perfect version of myself at all times. But once I allowed myself to be vulnerable, to admit when I didn't know something or when I was struggling, I found that people respected me even more. They appreciated my authenticity, and they felt more comfortable being real with me too. And how you use them, how you wield them determines the kind of respect you command. It's not about perfection, it's about consistency, intentionality, and the courage to stand by what you say, even when it's uncomfortable. When you speak with purpose, when you master the art of pausing, when you know how to use humor wisely, when you refuse to gossip, and when you own your space with confidence, you become someone people genuinely respect. You're not just speaking to be heard, you're speaking to make an impact, to make people think, to leave a mark. Now, the key takeaway here is that respect isn't just given, it's earned. Moment by moment, word by word, action by action. It's about how you show up, not just in the big moments, but in the small interactions too. Whether you're at work, with your friends, or even at a family gathering, the way you communicate sets the tone for the respect you receive. So remember, it's not about how much you talk or how much you impress people with your knowledge. It's about making every word count. It's about being consistent in your actions and words. It's about trusting the power of silence and knowing when to speak and when to stop. And above all, it's about showing respect to others, because that's how you'll earn respect in return. And hey, if you ever feel like you're not getting the respect you deserve, take a step back. Evaluate how you're communicating. Are you speaking with clarity? Are you listening with intent? Are you showing up authentically? If the answer is yes, then you're on the right path. And if not, don't be afraid to make some adjustments. Respect is a two-way street. The more you give it, the more you'll get it. So be mindful of how you communicate, because words are powerful and they'll always tell people exactly who you are. That's all for today, folks. Stay true to yourselves and keep speaking with purpose. That's the perfect wrap-up. It's genuine, relatable, and packs a punch. You've nailed it with the call to action and keeping the tone light while still addressing the serious points. This will definitely engage people to not only reflect on their own habits, but also feel comfortable sharing their experiences. The mix of humor, motivation, and practical advice makes it memorable. If you're turning this into content, I'd recommend a strong closing that reflects your personality and reinforces the authenticity you've built. Keep it real, keep it fun, and keep inspiring. You're definitely on the path to commanding respect through your words and presence. Now it's your turn. Start practicing these powerful communication techniques and watch how the world begins to respond to you differently. Remember, respect isn't just something you demand, it's something you earn, one word at a time.